Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach, and welcome Minister Darcy to the House. He's no stranger and he's doing a great body of work. I suppose, just as an aside, now that Senator McDowell has heralded his standing in the next general election, wherever that is, you might give us maybe a preview of your slogan when you go up that poll and you hammer the nail, right? So it might be interesting. So that's just an aside. What?
You wouldn't be using nails, that would be bad.
Well, that
might electrocute himself.
Hardly think so. So look, I welcome the summer economic statement, and I suppose just taking an overall view, I think the approach taken with this particular summer economic statement in that it's dealing with Brexit hangs over us. There's no point in saying otherwise. The likelihood of, well, there's now probably a certainty of a Brexit, and there's a strong possibility of a hard Brexit. So I think we have to be prudent. I think equally we have to look at what our policies are as a government and be true to those as well. So when you take, I suppose, just a bit of a due diligence, the economy is now back on a reasonably sound footing. We have a budget surplus for the first time in 10 years. We have virtually full employment, over 2.3 billion people working, 2.3 million people working. We have an unemployment rate which is below what would be termed normally full employment. Our debt levels are still high, and that's something that we have to be cautious of, public and private. And that's something that I'm aware of. Our debt levels are coming down, and certainly you've seen a reduction both in public and private debt levels, particularly this year. But equally, it's something we must be conscious of. My view is that when the 2007 onwards, public investment in infrastructure projects just literally stopped. And you'd have to question in hindsight whether that was actually the correct approach. And the issue now is that I think it's important that we continue to invest in public infrastructure. We have the M20 now design and planning underway. Even in terms of locally in Limerick, we have a 60-bed block being built in the regional, which is hugely important. With flood relief projects, and they're up and down the country. And Senator McDowell made reference to, we'll say, public transport, something I will be hugely supportive of in terms of both our rail network and other networks. And it's something feeding into the whole issue of the carbon footprint and the climate change is something we have to look at. Side by side with that, we have to be conscious of the fact as well that in terms of our indigenous export sector, they're hugely dependent on the UK. So we have a hard Brexit. Are there implications for us in Ireland? Very definitely. Do we have to prepare for it in that way? Absolutely. Equally, if there's a soft Brexit, it makes it much easier. So I think what's laid out in this summer economic statement effectively presents a picture of a balanced budget, presents a picture of full employment, presents a picture of now a doubling of capital investment, and we have a capital programme back on board. Equally presents where the risks are. The risks are with Brexit. The risks are the level of the increase we've seen in corporation tax. There's a body of work within the department. We have to look at that in terms of the long-term structure. Equally, we're looking at the climate plan, where we're looking at carbon taxes going up and rising up to, in terms up to 2030. We're looking at ensuring as well, but side by side with that, which I'm conscious of, and I have a fundamental view on this, it's about striking a balance. Should someone on €680 a week be paying a marginal rate of tax of 50%? I don't believe so. And equally, we have to look after people that are less well off, people on social welfare, carers, various interests. That's the balance of government. Equally, you have to put money aside. And like we had the debate, and Senator Harkin made reference to the Rainy Day Fund. There was effectively unanimous support for the fund here, be it explicit or implicit, right? And I think when people look into their hearts on a personal level, they agreed with the overall aim of what the Rainy Day Fund is. There'll be $2 billion in place by the end of this year in a Rainy Day Fund. That's a significant amount of money. So I suppose what I think is hugely important from now on is that we are moving into the territory where we need counter-cyclical budgets, where effectively, if the economy is getting to a point where it's overheating, we must put money aside for a rainy day. If we have a hard Brexit, we must support people in the export sector into the UK. That's leading in terms of jobs. That's a multitude of areas. That brings its own. And the disorderly Brexit will bring, involve a headline deficit between 0.5% to 2.5% and could a swing of up to $6 billion. It could have significant implications for us. However, it is outside our control at the moment. The British Parliament will decide on the type of Brexit they will have. That's, I suppose, conditional upon a number of factors. Conditional upon who becomes leader of the Conservatives, becomes Prime Minister. However, I would always look to see some positive. The majority of MPs are not in favour of a no deal. We have to hope that that will bring about some sort of realism and common sense when it comes to the time, because we're both inextricably linked as countries. And so I suppose in summary, I very much welcome the summer economic statement. And going back to Senator McDowell's point, yeah, we must have control over spending. Equally, we must ensure we give breaks to people, hard-pressed families across a range of areas. It is a balancing act, but I suppose, if I'm being honest, the outcome of our neighbours in the UK, our near neighbours, will have huge implications for us. I think it's a terrible shame that they're leaving Europe. They were huge allies of ours on various discussions and negotiations in Europe. I don't believe there will now be a rethink. I think we're going to have a Brexit. The question is what form it will take. This summer economic statement is dealing with the realities of what's unfolding in front of our eyes in the UK. We must be prepared. This document goes a significant way to doing that. Thank you.